Okay, so in this tutorial we will be saying how to get started with your Raspberry Pi and set it up with Raspbian, the default operating system for it, and how I will be showing you a few recommended good programs on it. So what you're going to need is obviously your Raspberry Pi itself. Now it could be a Raspberry Pi 1, a Raspberry Pi 2, or the new Raspberry Pi Zero, which is pretty cool, I think. But in this tutorial I'm going to be using the Raspberry Pi 2. It's fairly similar, yours should be. But yeah, so what you're going to also need is the power supply for your Raspberry Pi, which is the plug. You need a SD card and its adapter, probably for minimum of 4 gigabytes. They're not very expensive if you haven't got one. You will also need a HDMI for display connections to your TV or monitor. You don't need this, but I strongly recommend you have some sort of internet connection, like a dongle for Wi-Fi or some sort of Ethernet connection. And once you've got all that, you also need a keyboard and mouse to control your Raspberry Pi with. But yes, so once you've got all of that, you need access to a computer with internet, so it could be a laptop or desktop. And then once you've got that, you can get started. So once you're all ready and got all the right parts, we're going to start with your SD card. So if you need to insert your SD card into your computer or laptop. If you have a laptop, well, most laptops and desktops come with an SD card slot, which mine is actually located there. You probably can't see. Oh yeah, you can see it. If you don't have an SD card slot, don't worry. You can buy a USB SD card slot for a very small price, probably about £5, I reckon. And so once you've got that, you want to get your SD cards, and most computers require it to be inserted to the adapter. So just put a shit in like that. Make sure the lock is not switched down, because if it's like this, then your SD card will not be read. If it's like this, then it will work. So make sure it's like that, and then insert it into your computer. Wait for a few seconds for it to be picked up, and then you should be ready to go. So then you need to get the software, which I will now insert your SD card into your computer. Go onto your computer and go to your computer. Now it should if you're using Windows 8, then obviously your start menu may not look like this, but just navigate to your computer by going to Start on My Computer, or alternatively you could press the File Explorer down here. And then you want to find your SD card, which is here, which is my F drive. And as you can see, I've got 56.8 megabytes. And if yours does say a very low storage, even though it says on the SD card, I don't know, 4 gigabytes, there is a way to fix this with the software we're going to get. So if you go to your browser, you want to go to, you need to search on Google SD formatter, and it should be the first one which comes up. I recommend this one personally because it is the best one. And then once the page is loaded, you want to download it. So you go to Downloads. You want the SD card formatter for Windows. If you're using Mac, then go ahead and get the Mac one, but I'm using Windows, so I'm going to get the Windows one. And then if you scroll down, you have to press Accept, and then the zip file with the SD formatter setup will download, and then open it up. I'm using 7-zip, but you may just be using Windows Explorer, but I personally recommend 7-zip because it's quite easy and handy. And then you want to run the setup.exe, but I already have it installed. But once you run it, it will give you some very easy instructions on how to set it up, and then you should be good to go. Okay, so once you've got your SD formatter up, it should look something similar to this. You may have a newer version the time watching this, or an older version, but it should be fairly similar. You want to make sure that your your SD drive is selected, and you can find this out by going back to your computer, and next to your SD card it should say a letter. Mine is the F drive, yours may not be, and then you want to go to your SD formatter. If it says F, then that is correct, or if it's like the G drive, it should be G. And then it says 57.0 megabytes, which is how much is currently on there. The volume label is boot, but you can change that. You don't have to have this. This is just what I like it as. You go to, so to start the format, you go to options. Make sure your format type, this is very important, this bit, make sure format type is on full, because this will get rid of everything on your SD card. If there's any sort of personal pictures or videos or whatever files on there, then be sure to move them to another device, because you are going to completely erase the SD card. If it says, like mine does, that it's only got like 57 megabytes, and it says like on the SD card 4 gigabytes, 8 gigabytes, then you want to turn on format size adjustment, and then that will put it back to how much space should be on it. Press OK and press format. Press OK. And then give it a few seconds. It shouldn't take that long. Well, it could take up to a minute depending on how fast your computer is or laptop. So give it some time. I'm going to pause the video and come back to it when it's finished. Okay, so when it's finished it should come up something saying memory card format complete, and you just want to press OK and exit. Now your SD card has completely been formatted, and as you can see I have got 14.8 gigabytes on there. You may not, you may have 4 gigabytes, but because 4 gigabytes is the recommended. So once that is done, you now need to download Raspbian, well, the Noobs installer on www.raspberrypi.org. Press enter, or you could just search Raspberry Pi on Google, and it should be the first option which comes up. Okay, so once you are in the Raspberry Pi website, you want to go to Downloads. You want to go to Noobs, not Raspbian. I know I said we're going to install Raspbian, but to make it easier for you, we're going to download Noobs. You want to, once you come up to this, you want to press Download Zip on the Noobs offline and network install. Now this can take quite a long time depending on how fast your internet is, because it is quite a large file, but be patient, and I'm going to pause the video until it is finished. Okay, so the file has now downloaded and you need to open it up. You can find it in your downloads folder, or if you're using Chrome you can just click on it. So if you're using Windows Explorer, something like this will open. If you're using 7-zip, this will open. So you've got all the files now in here, and what you want to do is you want to extract these to your SD card. So if you go to your SD card, double click on it, you want to highlight all of these files, and you want to drag them into your SD card. Now this can take a few minutes because it needs to extract all of them from this zip file into your SD card. Okay, so all of my files have extracted and gone successfully onto my SD card. So now you are ready to remove your SD card from your computer. Before you do that, I recommend just exiting the program. Your SD card from your computer. And you may now need to remove the micro SD from the adapter, depending whether you have a Raspberry Pi 1, a Raspberry Pi 2, or a Raspberry Pi 0. If you have a Raspberry Pi 1, then just leave it in the adapter. If you have the either of the other two, a Raspberry Pi 0 or Raspberry Pi 2, take the micro SD card out of its adapter. Okay, so now for the fun part, setting it up and plugging it in, except that part's not fun at all. So grab your Raspberry Pi and you need to plug the HDMI cable into it. To be fair, actually I would leave this out till last, because it makes our Raspberry Pi quite hard to move because it's quite a thick cable, but in this case I'm going to plug it in first. So once your HDMI is plugged in, you want to also plug that into your TV or monitor. If you're using a monitor, not all monitors have HDMI unless you have a modern one, so make sure that you do have a HDMI port. So once that's plugged in, now you're going to plug in the power supply. So grab your plug, and you can actually use any standard sort of phone charger, but I'm I would use this one because I would use the one which you buy with it because that's like been designed for the Raspberry Pi. So you want to plug this in, and hold on. Do not force any plugs into your Raspberry Pi because that could bend some pins and then there'll be a problem. So then you need to plug it into your wall, obviously, but I'm going to use an extension lead. Do not turn your power on yet, because if you turn it on, your Raspberry Pi will switch on, and then if you haven't got your SD card in it yet, nothing will boot up correctly. It will just give you like a blank screen. So grab your SD card, micro SD card. I'm going to be using this case if you have Raspberry Pi on, like I said. Then you need the adapter, and you want to locate to the back of your Raspberry Pi and insert it. Be very careful, it's quite fiddly. Push it into place until you hear it click. Okay, so once that is in, now you're going to be connecting up. Well, I'm going to be connecting up my internet connection. You may not have this, but I strongly recommend you do. In this case, I'm going to be using the TP-Link Nano router. Connect that to your Ethernet. Then you want to plug it in via USB. Yours may be different, yours just may be a USB dongle only, but mine's a bit more complicated than that. So as you can see, I'm just hooking it up to my Nano router, which will give me internet connection on my Raspberry Pi. Just place that there. Okay. Now you need to connect your keyboard and mouse. I'm going to be using the ones I use for my laptop because they're my best ones. So I'm using a wireless mouse, but you may just be using the wired one, but this is the wireless receiver for the mouse. So you want to plug that into one of its USB ports, and then you want to get your keyboard, which in this case I'm going to be... You want to plug it into another USB port. And then you should be able to switch on the power, and make sure on the right input on your TV, or if you're on the monitor, it should automatically pick it up. And then your Raspberry Pi should boot up with, mine boots up with a red light. You should see it should automatically boot up into Noobs, the installer for Raspbian. I'm just going to get you a clear shot. And then it will now initialize Noobs. Okay, so mine is showing Raspbian recommended. In this tutorial we're going to be using Raspbian because it is the OS which was designed for Raspberry Pi. Sometimes a few others will appear, but in this tutorial we're going to be using Raspbian. So tick it and then press install. Warning, and it will give you a warning. Just press yes. And now you're going to have to wait for a few minutes because it has to install onto your SD card. So give that some time. I'll pause the video and come back to it. Okay, so the Raspberry Pi is almost finished installing. It took quite a while. It took about probably 20 minutes, but it could take longer depending how fast your SD card is. So it's about to finish, and it's now 100% complete on extracting its file system. So the Raspberry Pi should now have Raspbian installed. Give it a few moments. Okay, now it'll say OS installed successfully. Press OK, and it should reboot. Okay, so now it will come up with a terminal. Don't worry, it looks a bit weird, but it's just actually booting up your Raspberry Pi. This is a good sign. Everything is okay by the looks of it. And in a few moments, give it some time. It doesn't take that long, but it will boot up your desktop environment. Okay, so your Raspberry Pi is now booted up, and it looks quite familiar to use. So you've got your menu up here, and and this will give you all your programs, such as programming, Office, Internet, games, accessorize and help, preferences, and the run, which will where you can run a command. And then there's the shutdown, which will turn off your Raspberry Pi. So you can change where your taskbar is positioned. You can have it down here if you'd like, but in this is how it will look by default. So you this is where you see if you've got internet connection, and then yeah, you've got your file manager here. You've got your terminal, so like you can do commands in here and stuff. But some programs which I really do recommend on your Raspberry Pi is Sonic Pi, because it's really good software. It's got like a built-in tutorial on how to program the programming language called Ruby, and you can compose music with code. It's really cool actually. And then there's Scratch, which is it's an easy to use sort of programming system. It's a lot more easier basically than not proper code, but it's quite good for beginners. Then you've got like your Java programs and your Python programs, so Java and Python developers. You can use Office on here. This is LibreOffice, but it's pretty much like Microsoft Office, except you can actually get it for free, and it's already installed on Raspbian by default. Then you've got your Mail, your Epiphany web browser. That's how you can get on the internet. Games, you can get more games obviously, but this comes with a free version of Minecraft for the Raspberry Pi, which is quite cool. And you've got Python games, which developers have put on here already, basically developers who have coded basic games. And then your accessorizer, you can use like calculators, terminals, and text editors and things like that. You can do like your help here if you get stuck. Preferences, you can like configure your Raspberry Pi and stuff, so you want to change this or how many things are here, and yeah. So say you wanted to play it, but Minecraft Pi is quite a good thing, because like the Raspberry Pi is not a very powerful computer yet. As you can see here, if you start a game, you can like do some basic sort of, you can go into a world of blocks, which is quite. Of course, you can have your own little Minecraft land if you want, but I'm not going to do like a huge review on the game, because yeah, I don't really play it that much. So it runs quite nicely actually. Look, you can just sort of build things, which I think is pretty cool. And then you can quit the game and stuff. So, and then but I really do recommend for programming, because it's really educational and they're very handy little computers. The Raspberry Pi 2 is only like £30, and the Raspberry Pi 1 is like £20. The Raspberry Pi Zero, however, is only like £4 in the UK, I believe, which is actually really, really decent. But the only downside to say is they have micro USB ports, and not a lot of things work with micro USB. But Sonic Pi is a great software. It's made by a few people. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. I'm not even going to try. And it's actually a really handy little software where you can like let's wait for a load so I can show you. It's a really handy software, and like you could like code, and like so you could do play. Oh. Play 75. So, like you can play sounds in here and stuff. You probably can't hear that. No, you won't be able to hear that. And then you can make music, which is, so it's a really good software. And then I do recommend Scratch for beginners, because it's quite a simple sort of programming software. So like you can like program what this character does here, so you can go to motion, and yeah. But these are great little softwares. It's a very good computer overall for only £30, and yeah, I hope you can do so much with it. You can program, you can actually turn your Raspberry Pi into robots, you can turn it into a media center. But now you know how to install an operating system onto the Raspberry Pi, which is Raspbian in this case, and you know how to use, like, you know what sort of programs are in it and what a £30 computer can give you. Don't bother going to spend like £300 on a proper computer. You can actually buy only a £30 one, which is quite decent. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial.